Good morning. Good morning. I am proud to be standing in the freest state in the United States and in the symbol of freedom right here at the Freedom Tower of Miami. And I think if you look around what Constitution Hall would mean to Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, what the Alamo would mean to Texas, the Freedom Tower means to the state of Florida. It's a symbol of people seeking freedom and people who have fled communist dictatorship to be able to come live a life in freedom. And it puts it in stark relief, I think, because you're talking about 90 miles away. The difference between destitution and tyranny, and the difference between freedom, opportunity, and prosperity. And I'd say there's probably no place in our country where that difference is more stark than comparing South Florida to the Cuban dictatorship that so many people fled. And so we're here today to have a great announcement, and I want to just thank President Madeline Kumirieta from Miami-Dade College for being here. I know we have some other dignitaries in the crowd. We got some mayors. I know Steve Bobo's here. I think Mayor De La Cruz from Hialeah Gardens. JC from Doral, I think, is here. I want to thank you guys for coming. And then we have some great folks up here who are going to say a few things. We have our Lieutenant Governor. We have Marcel Felipe, Silvio Iridado, and I think is Felix Rodriguez here too? I don't know. Okay, Felix is here. So we want to thank everybody for doing that. We have, if you look at what's going on right now in the island of Cuba, you've got a lot of people who are standing up and fighting against the brutal dictatorship. This is something that I think many of the people who fled Cuba over the decades probably never envisioned that the tyranny would last this long. And if you think about it, when communism fell in Eastern Europe, when the Soviet Union expired at the beginning of the 1990s, you still had this iron grip on this little island. And they didn't loosen the grip at all, even though the rest of the world had changed and Marxism, Leninism seemingly was on the ash heap of history. And if you look at now what's going on throughout the Western Hemisphere, the dictatorship in Nicaragua and the sham elections that they're doing there, you look at the destruction of Venezuela and other spots throughout the Western Hemisphere, none of that would be happening if not for this communist regime in Havana. This is the original cancer that has metastasized throughout the Western Hemisphere. So here we are, a whole generation after the defeat of the Soviet Union, after the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe, and you still have Marxism, totalitarianism, with a stranglehold on places in our own Western Hemisphere. We need to do more as a country to stand for people who are standing for freedom. And going back to July, we had opportunities to be able to make an impact. People weren't even asking, really honestly, very modest requests in terms of what could be done to really make an impact. And to this date, in spite of months and months of people risking their lives, many people have been in prison falsely. Many people are being targeted by the regime in Havana. You've had almost no support whatsoever from the Biden administration, and I think that they're missing a historic opportunity to be able to make common cause with people who just want to be able to live in freedom, want to be able to have a voice in the public affairs of their country, and want to move beyond this communist dictatorship. We should all, as free people in the United States, want to see that happen. We should all want to see the day when we have a free Cuba. So the state of Florida stands with everybody that's taking to the streets, everybody that's protesting, everybody who wants to have a better life, and we will continue to do that. And I only hope that the Biden administration could see fit to provide some support, because so far they've provided none. Today we're here with a great announcement. I'm proud to announce that in my upcoming legislative budget recommendations, we will be providing a $25 million investment in the Freedom Tower to preserve this monument for future generations. close to being 100 years old, and it does need some major repairs and some restoration. These are needed to ensure that it will continue to stand here as a symbol of freedom and opportunity for decades to come. What we will be able to do with this funding is complete structural repairs that are very urgent, conserve and restore historical architecture components, make the building more accessible for people with disabilities, install museum-quality climate control and security systems to safeguard the Cuban-American history stored here, and reimagine and redesign the exhibits displaying that history to make it more engaging for all ages. And I think it's very important. This is one example, but there's other examples. You know, on Veterans Day, you know, I made the point of our World War II veterans are passing from the scene. We have some, God bless them, you know, but most of them have passed. And there really is a danger just kind of forgetting about the sacrifices they had to make when they had to stand up against tyranny and save the world, and save freedom in this world. And I think the same thing applies here, you know, with the Freedom Tower. You had people flee the communist revolution starting in the late 1950s. Hundreds of thousands of people came right through here, the Freedom Tower in Miami, to be able to have a chance at freedom. And that's something that we need to make sure that we commemorate, and that we make sure we carry on the legacy of everybody who sought a better life here and were able to really build a tremendous community. And I can tell you, I talk to people all over the country. Everyone's talking about Miami right now. I mean, this is really the place to be for so many people, and so we're proud of that, but we need to be good stewards of this history. We need to make sure that people understand what this means, particularly in subsequent generations. I mean, we were just at, recently with, we gave Felix the Florida Medal of Freedom, and we were at the brigade, you know, those folks in the brigade, I mean, you know, are getting up in years, and I really appreciate what they've done to be able to make sure that the community appreciates the sacrifices that were made there. So we think that this is something that is needed now, but we think this is something that we want people looking to this, not just now or tomorrow, but 20 years, 30 years, 50 years down the road, to be able to understand the importance of this Freedom Tower and how huge of an impact this has made to the history of the state of Florida. Because I can tell you, you would not be seeing a lot of what's going on in Miami in terms of the boom. You didn't have so many people that were dedicated to freedom and that really valued it and did not take it for granted. So many people throughout the rest of our country, they just take it for granted because they think this is what they've always known. Nothing can ever change. And I think when people come to South Florida, people are very sensitive about liberty. They're very sensitive about having a free society because they've seen it taken away. And now we're in a situation that if they take it away from us here, you know, we don't have a place that we're able to escape to. So this is really freedom's last stand. So I'm proud to be able to put this in our budget. I think we're going to get strong support from the Florida legislature to be able to do this. And I think it's going to be something that's going to make a difference for generations to come. So thanks for hosting us here. We were here actually. My first full day as governor was here. We did an announcement where we appointed a Cuban American to the Florida Supreme Court, Justice Barbara Lagoa. So that was a neat day, and I'm proud to be back here to be able to have this great announcement. So we're going to hear from a few folks. Jeanette Nunez, our Lieutenant Governor, who many down here know well.
What a pleasure it is to be here with our great governor and so many wonderful elected officials, mayors, commissioners, city commissioners, congressmen. Always a pleasure to be with you here. It truly is an honor to be here at the Freedom Tower, an iconic symbol for those of us that hail from South Florida. It's a beacon of inspiration to so many families that call Florida home. As Governor DeSantis has said many times, the Freedom Tower is the embodiment of the American dream, and the Cuban American people hold that dream firmly in their fingertips. The beautiful thing about this wonderful piece of history is the dreams that were shattered and yet simultaneously commenced all at the same time. On these very floors, the stories that we've heard, they're all the same, yet they're all different. So today we're proud that we have made the announcement of the $25 million investment to restore this beautiful, iconic symbol to its previous glory. And as the governor mentioned, just 90 miles from our shores, people are standing up. They're demanding freedom. They continue to risk their lives each and every day. And for the first time, we've seen the chink in the Cuban communist armor, and that is fear. They are afraid. They're afraid of the Cuban people. They're afraid that the Cuban people will once and for all seize what is rightfully theirs. And today, the rallying cry of Patria Vida is heard through every major city, town, and province. Not just in Cuba, but here in the United States as well, and actually throughout the whole world. And so they're emboldened, and they're indignant, and their demands for freedom after 6 decades of repression and misery can no longer be ignored. And so what you've seen and what you've heard from these people is that they say, si callamos, nos matan. Si hablamos, nos matan. Y por eso hemos decidido de hablar para no morir en silencio. That, my friends, is powerful. That is courage. But quite frankly, that is desperation. And it is unbelievable to me that the Biden administration has sat back and done absolutely nothing to provide these people with the bare minimum access to the internet so the rest of the world can see the brutality up close and personal, so they can no longer ignore what the Diaz-Canel regime, the Castro regime has done to its people. America was founded on the values of freedom and democracy. Those values my parents came to this country for, and so many of you in the audience. Like I said, our stories are very similar, but also very different. And these ideals clearly have meant nothing to the Biden administration. They've sat back and done nothing. But thankfully we have a governor that understands the importance of freedom. Thankfully we have a governor that's willing to demand and cry out and ask them what are they going to do. But yet they do nothing because the Biden administration is too fearful of the radical left wing that now controls this party. And so to the Cubans on the island, if you're listening, estamos contigo. We stand with you. We stand with you. The governor stands with you. I stand with you. The free state of Florida stands with you. Que Dios nos bendiga, Patria Vida, abajo la comunidad.
And we're proud to be hosted here at Miami-Dade College. So the president of Miami-Dade College, Madeline Umeriega.
Buenos días, Governor, thank you. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor, thank you. This is personal. For me, it's personal. My dad was processed right through here, along with my mom. And so it's about freedom. For us, the Freedom Tower at Miami-Dade College is about preserving our history. That this building never has to close its doors, but it be a place where you can come and learn about the Cuban history. You can come and learn about the exile community and what we've done to not only build Miami-Dade County, but our country, and to preserve freedom. I want to say thank you to our District Board of Trustees here today, Chairman Mike Coletta, Robert Alonso, Dr. Anai Abraham. Your support has always never wavered on the right decision for the college to make. I can't tell you what a champion Marcel is. Just a couple of months ago, we stood with 10,000 strong outside these doors because we said to Cuba and to our brothers and sisters, si Cuba está en la calle, Miami está en la calle. We are fighting for your freedom. This is not just about human rights and dignity. It is beyond that. It is about the calling of freedom and freeing Cuba once and for all, and making sure that we preserve the Freedom Tower to show that history, not for just 100 years, but for the next 100 years, that we never forget the sacrifices made for a free Cuba. I also want to thank Chancellor Hedda from the Department of Education here today joining us, and Congressman Carlos Jimenez. Thank you, and to all the mayors. Miami-Dade stands with our community and stands with the Cuban people. Patria y vida.
Okay, Marcel Philippe, a very, very strong apostle for freedom and great advocate for the Cuban American community.
Thank you. One housekeeping thing first. I'm here wearing two hats. The trustee hat at Miami-Dade College and the Ideas for Cuba Inspire America Foundation hat on Cuba. And on that, I'd like to invite the members of the press that are here to stay with us. Immediately after this, in this room back here, we will have visitors from the island that are here with us today, like Edith Ruiz, whose son is currently in hiding from the Cuban authorities in Cuba, meet with members of the European Parliament who are here, who have traveled across the Atlantic to be here today to support them, and with all the different heads of the exile organizations who will be meeting here. That will be open to the media, and I welcome you to join us. But I've been asked to speak as a trustee of this institution, and particularly the importance of Freedom Tower. Now, when the governor's team asked me to join this board, the very first board meeting, I made clear that I had three overriding objectives I wanted to accomplish. Number one, we were tasked with finding a new president to lead this institution, the largest college in the United States, for perhaps the next generation. And we were thrust with a candidate that wasn't the right candidate for the job. So it got bloody. The mayor knows he was there, he had a front, very much sitting where he was right now, while we were bigger. But in the end, how do we report that this board got it right? And now, under the leadership of President Dumariega and Chairman-elect, this institution is going beyond what anyone ever expected it to be. Democracy's college is on the rise and has a bright future. And thank you, and Michael, for your leadership. Thank you. I made clear, even in the face of some opposition from fellow Republicans, that this institution, Democracy's College, could not continue to have ties with the Communist government of China's finance Confucius Institute. And that was a blood fight, even from some Republicans. But today, we're very, very happy to report, Mr. Governor, that this institution, the Chinese Communist government, no longer has a place in this institution. This is Democracy College. The last thing, and the one thing that really got me very interested in serving in this position. And it's an unpaid position. Everyone who serves here takes their time. I know Mr. Baraka has a lot of business to attend to, but he comes and he gives his time as chairman, almost another full-time job. And it is that we wanted to save and preserve this tower as Jorge Mascarosa dreamed of it. As he dreamed of it when he purchased his hard-earned money in 1997, unfortunately just 6 months before his death. But that task, it's a very difficult task. That is something that this board will not do alone. It's something that requires the entire community, and it requires the leadership of a governor that's never assuming, never mumbles, just delivers and gets the job done. Thank you so much for that. Now, certainly, we've done a great job here so far. There's so much more to be done to really capture that figure. So at Inspire America, we launched a television campaign on America TV over the last few weeks to ask Cuban Americans to send us their comments as to what they thought this meant to them, this place meant to them. As you can imagine, there were great comments. After all, this is a place where many of them came to find orientation as to where to get the first job in America. Some came here to just basically get some food or process paperwork. There was a program to relocate all the Cuban exiles throughout the United States, so there wouldn't be so many in one city in Miami. That kind of didn't work. But the best of all the comments was that by an elderly woman from Miami. She had come here as a single mother with 2 children. Her husband was not able to come to the United States. And she told me, the Freedom Tower was just a place to come and get some food. It was a place where I could find hope. And it was the place where I started my journey as a free person. And that really says it all. That encapsulates what this building means to this community. But it goes beyond the Cuban community. See, when this building was first erected, it was the tallest building in this small, quiet town. Today, as we sit here, it is dwarfed by skyscrapers, built in large part by the same community that she once housed, she once helped. And that is also a testament to how far Miami and Florida have come, particularly over these last 60 years. And finally, as a symbol of Miami, it goes beyond that, something that the governor mentioned. See, in those 60 years that we have built up this, one of the most desirable cities in the world, in those same 60 years, the Cuban government and the Marxist system has taken what was once the 29th largest economy in the world, despite having only 6 million people, an economy whose per capita income was higher than Spain, Italy, or Portugal. No disrespect to our Spanish colleagues. You've come a long way and has turned it to a basket case of despair in those same 60 years. So we are a story of freedom, a reminder, a sober reminder, that free men and women can do more and achieve more when they live in freedom. And it's that inspiration that in large part has motivated our brothers and sisters on the island to take that stand in July. And is what motivated the rest of this community to stand outside these doors, the tens of thousands in July, and support them. That is what this building means. That is what we hope to do here, to tell that story of freedom and to keep it for future generations. And with the help of this government, we have now done so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcel. Now I'd like to be able to bring up Sylvia Iriando.
Wow. And you pronounced it well. Not very often. Governor DeSantis, Lieutenant Governor John Núñez, members of Congress, elected officials, distinguished guests, Miami-Dade County College President Pumariega, it is an honor to be here with all of you this morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you on this very special day for the Cuban people. More than 6 decades ago, this building received and possessed thousands and thousands of Cuban refugee families who came to this great nation of ours, fleeing Cuba's communist regime with broken hearts and shattered dreams in search for freedom. There are so many memories when I come into this building. I get emotional. I close my eyes and I can see my late mother, Celia M. Gowdy, working at a desk here to my right, interviewing Cuban refugees for the International Rescue Committee, the first agency that opened its doors in Miami to assist the thousands and thousands of Cuban refugees in need of everything. I look further down that way and I see my cousin, Meridian Council. She also worked for the International Rescue Committee, counseling and hearing the stories, the testimonies of so many families that have been completely broken and have seen all their dreams fall down and broken too. And I see to my left, and I see my sister Eileen walking the corridors, taking Cuban refugees to registration. It's very emotional every time I come to this building. Some things have changed, but the core value of this building is in its history, and history needs to be honored. This Freedom Tower, which became our Ellis Island, is worth preserving. We commend Governor DeSantis for today's actions geared towards the restoration of this iconic building, which represents a beacon of hope and American generosity and values for so many of us. And precisely because I am standing here in this building, which represents so much for so many, I want to take this opportunity to call your attention to what is happening in Cuba today as we speak, where the Cuban people are taking to the streets to peacefully call for freedom, human rights, and democratic change in Cuba. We know very well and have witnessed many times the criminal nature of the communist dictatorship that rules the island prison with an iron fist. Among those crimes committed by the dictatorship, 3 American citizens and 1 legal U.S. resident were murdered in international airspace on February 24, 1996, under the orders of dictators Fidel and Raúl Castro. As a result of the July 11th peaceful demonstrations in the island, there are more than 570 Cubans who have been arbitrarily incarcerated, beaten, tortured, and even murdered, in addition to the many other political prisoners being held before the July 11th uprising under infrahuman conditions in the regime's jails throughout the island. State security agents, many dressed as civilians, have surrounded activist homes to impede them from marching for freedom. The regime has called upon its repressive forces to use any and all available means, including brutal and lethal force, to quell the protests. The Assembly of the Cuban Resistance, as well as other Cuban-American patriotic organizations in our community, are working non-stop to monitor the situation in Cuba through an information center located at the Brigade 2506 house on 18th Avenue and Southwest 8th Street in Miami. We ask that you continue to support our people's just and peaceful struggle. We have lost too many opportunities since 1959, starting with the failed Brigade 2506 heroic gest in Cuba when they were abandoned in the beaches of Playa Mirón. We believe this is a crucial moment in history, and that our collective efforts to accompany these courageous men and women in the island will definitely make a difference to help bring about a new dawn of freedom for Cuba, as well as peace, stability, and security for our hemisphere. The governor said it well. Cuba is the cancer. The metastasis is in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, in Bolivia, in Colombia, and in our whole hemisphere. And unless we put a stop to it, it jeopardizes our values, it jeopardizes our principles, and it jeopardizes our freedom. So again, we are a single community. We share this community we all love so much. We need to come together. We need to come together, not only for Cuba, but in defending Cuba, we are defending our values as well. I thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to speak to you, and for your invitation, Governor DeSantis, Lieutenant Governor Núñez. Thank you so much.
So we're excited. So we're excited about the announcement. Just even coming up here this morning, you kind of wade through the Miami traffic. Obviously, you see a lot of more modern buildings, and you kind of get on that road and you see that Freedom Tower just sitting there. It just makes you feel good. It's kind of like when you be in D.C., it's a swamp, there's all kind of problems, but you see like the Lincoln Memorial or the Washington Monument, it just makes you feel good to be an American. So it makes me feel good when I see the Freedom Tower, to be an American, to be a Floridian, and this is going to be something that I think is going to mean an awful lot to a lot of folks here in South Florida, and this needs to continue to be one of the premier symbols for freedom that we have. And yes, as all the speakers said, we have an opportunity as a country to make common cause with people who are fighting for freedom on the island of Cuba. And so far, the response has been pathetic, and really just hoping that this kind of quote goes away. I think that would be a historic opportunity that will have been missed. There's been different flashpoints throughout the last many decades, but I don't know that you've ever seen this much dissatisfaction boiling to the surface, where we really could see a change and see a better future finally after decades of repression. So I know everyone here in South Florida is united. The state of Florida stands behind those folks who want their voice heard, who want freedom, and we do need the Biden administration to step up to the plate and get on the right side here and help those folks who just want to have their voice heard. We'll be watching, and we're going to make sure that we make sure we are speaking with one voice here in the state of Florida. But legislature, I don't know that we have any here because they're up doing a special session, but this is a layup for you guys, so I'm very confident that you'll be able to get this done. Fortunately, we're in very good financial shape in the state of Florida, have really abundant reserves, have managed the state very wisely, and clearly we've had a lot of people want to come here and invest in Florida. So you're seeing that reflected in our budget, in our financials. In the education budget, we did this budget piece today for Freedom Tower. We're going to be rolling out some other portions of the budget, and then we'll probably do the whole budget sometime beginning in December. But suffice it to say, we're in a really strong position, and so this is an easy thing to be able to do. And I think, quite frankly, the benefit of putting in $25 billion will get far more benefit in that. And honestly, if it just teaches young people what this means, and they learn about the history and the struggles, and that they're better citizens as a result of it, that will pay for itself 10 times. So thank you all. God bless you, and we will restore the Freedom Tower.
Okay, kind of a local story down in Miami, restoring the Freedom Tower. But it brings up a much larger issue, and I love the backdrop. I absolutely love the backdrop that they chose to have for this event. I don't know if you can read it, but it says Terra Australis, which is, of course, the southern land, ancient Latin term. And right behind where the governor was standing, it said Circulus Antarcticus, which to me, of course, everybody knows me as the crazy Antarctica guy. Arctic means north circle. Everybody knows that if you talk about the Arctic, you talk about the north. When you talk about the Antarctic, you talk about the anti-north. And that is so fitting that we are literally the antithesis of the North. Many people thought it was all over in the 1860s. It was never over. It was never over. Now, my apologies, number one, for the echo in the audio. There wasn't very much I could do about that. But I've covered this before multiple times. We unfortunately had trolls in the chat today who want to whine and complain and moan and be negative and talk about this ridiculous story that about La Palma, that even the people, and this is what people need to pay attention to, even the people who put out the original story about the La Palma landslide way back in 2008 causing some giant tsunami, modern studies have proved that didn't happen. Modern studies have proved it never happened. See, they thought the whole thing broke off at one time and slid into the ocean. Those of you who don't know what I'm talking about here. Let's see if I can find La Palma. Is it down here or up farther north? All right, here's La Palma. Here's the stupid conspiracy theory that the people who put it out have retracted and self-debunked. They said that right here, Cumbre Vieja, this is going to slide into the ocean all at once, cause a huge wave to go propagating across the ocean and slam into the east coast of the United States. Okay, and of course, conspiracy theorists think that that's what the government's going to do because Florida's pushing back and all this bullshit. And these lies. First of all, let's pretend for a minute the self-debunked conspiracy theory actually was true. As far as Florida goes, the vast majority of the populated areas of Florida would not take the brunt of the hit. See this place called the Bahamas and the continental shelf? That wave comes over, it'll slam into the Bahamas, and it will completely disperse before it would hit Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach, all this area. The only place in Florida that would possibly see any kind of a problem would be from about maybe Palm Bay, Titusville, north to Jacksonville. But Tampa, Orlando, Tallahassee, our capital, this would all be safe. Now, they can't just stop the wave at the state line. They can't just stop the wave at the state line. If that were the case, it would come propagating across east here. It would come into the Chesapeake Bay, and it would literally raise up in huge height and destroy Washington, Baltimore, and New York would be no more. And these are the people that they say would be sending the wave. Idiots. You literally have to be about an 80 IQ idiot to buy this. And a cursory inspection of a map proves this. But let's just leave that alone for a minute. Now that it's been thoroughly debunked yet a 10th time. All right. What would Washington, D.C. do if it was Florida that freed Cuba? If it was Florida that rebuilt Haiti? If Puerto Rico decided to leave and be their own government, but then still wanted to have direct relations with Florida, but not with D.C.? What if Mexico decided, you know what, we're done with all this supply chain hiccup. We're tired of all the issues at the border. You know, we're going to cool off relations with D.C., but boy, we'd sure like to maintain trade with Florida. What would happen if it was Florida that began taking the lead in international affairs? What would happen? And I want to go back real quick to the live, and I want to show something, and this is really going to probably tweak a little bit of people. One second. A little bit of a slow load today. I want to go back to one of the speakers. Well, it looks like it's not going to let me. Both of the speakers, other than the governor and the lieutenant governor, they were lighter skinned than I am. They were lighter skinned than I am, Spanish speakers. See, newsflash. Latin America is European America. Latin America is European America. Spanish is a European language. And they were here 100 years before the British ever were, any English speaker ever set foot here. If anybody could lay any kind of a historical claim, other than the natives who were here before, to this hemisphere and the culture and the civilizing of this hemisphere, it would be the Spanish and the Portuguese. I mean, history is pretty clear on this. It's abundantly clear. And I think it's very, very appropriate now that the places that we see standing up for freedom and standing for freedom are largely Hispanic, largely Spanish speakers. The Germans and the Dutch, they came along a lot later. We see there's a differentiation that a lot of people can't understand. You see, even if communism or Cuba fell, democratic socialism would not go away. Democratic socialism would not go away. At the time in Italy, Gate Smasher, they spoke Latin. Gate Smasher here speaks 5 languages. And those of you who aren't linguists, I am one. I took 5 years of French through middle school and high school, and I was also a Spanish linguist in the military. And as you know, once you've spoken a couple of those languages, the others kind of just come. Italian and Portuguese I can hear. So, and Brazil, 200 million people speaks Portuguese. And they came here to this country, the Spanish did, and maintained their roots of Christianity. And anybody who reads Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts, the Gospels, will see a common theme. Many times in each of those books do they say, come together, whatever it is that you have, put into common group, and then distribute to each man as is needed. If one has more food, if one has more weapons, if one has a larger shelter, do what's better for the group first, and then go your own ways. And then go out, and then prosper, and then be increased, and then bring that increase back to your group, the like-minded group. And honest to God, if you listen to preppers, anybody who listens to preppers online, all of that's been going on for what now, 10, 15 years at least, every single prepper video you see, you need to find a good group. You need to find a good group, and everybody needs to bring something to the group and be a survival group. And it's like they're literally talking about democratic socialism, but then literally 5 minutes out of their mouth, they decry socialism. It's hilarious because they don't even understand what democratic socialism is. Even if, let's say they got rid of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, let's say he would decide to step down, there would still be democratic socialism. In Venezuela, there would still be state-run oil. There would still be state-run oil in Venezuela, just like there's state-run oil in Brazil. I mean, I will say this. Brazil has done a better job of handling their natural resources than Venezuela has. Now, Brazil hasn't had the problem of Washington, D.C. That's the problem. Pardon me. Brazil hasn't had the problem of the continual attacks from Washington, D.C., or they would have likely had the same issues. Brazil is self-sufficient in food and self-sufficient in oil and petroleum production, and truly self-sufficient. The U.S. never was. Trump came out and falsely claimed that, based on the numbers of we were exporting more oil than we were importing, but we were still importing oil. And there was French here, Italian here, Portuguese. There's a scripture in the Bible. Maybe some of you can help me out with it. If I be lifted up, I will draw all men to me. It was actually a song by Ricky Van Shelton based on a scripture. If I be lifted up, I draw all men to me. And that's truly what freedom and liberty is all about. And yes, there are variations in Spanish language. There's just like here in with English, you have Southern English, and then you have Northeastern English. You have Brooklyn, you have California English. You have all sorts of, and they do too. Cuban is spoken one way, Puerto Rican yet another. Chilean is really different. But one thing all of these people have in common is a desire for freedom. But they do have a very strong sense of family, a very strong sense of wanting to work together for the common good, and that is biblical. I think I can probably, if there's any Spanish speakers or any Latin people in my audience right now, they will confirm the number one driver of Latin culture is God. Number two is family. Number three is country. God, family, country, in that order. I mean, they have patria y vida, but truly, in their lives, the first order of business is to honor God. The second is family. And the third is then country. And it works for them. It really does. So, this is why Florida, I believe, is going to start to take the lead, so to speak. Even if some people say, well, you can't really legally, technically. You see, there's legally, technically, and then there's reality. This is why I've talked about before this idea of de jure, meaning D-E space J-U-R-E, meaning in law, and de facto, meaning in reality or in fact. See, what is de facto and what is de jure is two different things. Case in point, 13 colonies. We've covered this a lot, and I think it's important to cover it a lot because we're starting to see it happen again. The 13 colonies at the time, by virtue of them calling themselves the 13 colonies, were de jure, meaning D-E-J-U-R-E, de jure. In law, they were colonies of Great Britain. But de facto, they were their own nation. They were an American nation. And what do we see now? And I'm sure, and this is where Gate Smasher just brought this up, this is where there's going to be conflict. President 45 has no place in this because he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the concepts of liberty, the concepts of freedom, and why they go hand in hand with conservatism. See, he would probably love there to be, people recognizing him as the true president in West Palm Beach. In fact, he said as much. If there's going to be any fly in the ointment, so to speak, on this, it's going to be this man. He needs to butt out. I think one of the reasons the people in Latin America identify with DeSantis so much is that the name literally means. Can somebody tell me what DeSantis out there means? You could probably make the allegation. It's a really Latin name. It's a Latin name. Bingo. Of the saints, or the saints, exactly right. Exactly right. And we're reading the book. We've done section 1 of chapter 1. We're going to do section 2 later on today. But believe me when I tell you, these people are not your enemy. Too much has been made of the border over here. And yet, look, and I'm not saying every single person who lives south of our border is, pure as the wind-driven snow, so to speak. There are criminals, of course. But in a free and liberated society, there will be criminals. There will be law and order, but there will also be criminals because you have to have enough rope to hang yourself. And there has to be prisons. And prisons are not nice places. Freedom and liberty is messy. It's not perfect. There will never be a free and liberated society where there won't be crime. There will never be a free and liberated society where there won't be crime. Because people have to have the freedom to make the wrong choice. Do they not? And any government big enough to stop that would be big enough to destroy freedom and liberty. Now, I'm sure, and even Governor DeSantis would say this, that he's no saint. I'm just watching the comment section here. The man's not perfect. He's a man, like any other man, and he acknowledges that. He also acknowledges, his need for forgiveness, his need for salvation. I have never heard 45 say anything like that, but I don't want to get too caught up on him. He needs to, because of his age, focus on being a grandfather and a father and a husband. He did his thing. He made his point. But he needs to sit back. The best he could do, remember guys, the best he could do is 4 years. And we're already 1 year into Biden. Tick-tock, tick-tock to 2022. Tick-tock, tick-tock to 2022. The left's already seeing it. The leftists are already seeing it. You should see what YouTube is trying to do now. They have really, really, really gone after channels like mine recently in the RPM, CPM range, meaning basically how much I make per view. I hadn't had a video demonetized in, I think I had gone 40, 45, 50 videos with no problems. And all of a sudden they just found one to randomly demonetize. Well, remember, guys, we haven't even the let me see if I can the jab hasn't even been out for a year. The jab hasn't even been out for a year. It was December of last year. See, that's how much has happened this year. People think it's like it's been 2 years. Somebody said, why does it feel longer? Because of so many things hitting the news cycle literally day after day after day after day after day. And, oh, this is important now. Now that's important now. Oh, here's this new piece of information. Oh, look at this. Look at that. Look at the other. That's why. That's why it's felt longer. It is. I tell you what, people are starting to get, pardon me, very tired, very exhausted of paying attention to all these things. Denise J. Squirrel, exactly right. Exactly right. I have videos. I have the trail cam, those of you who watch my backup channel. Perfect analogy. I have a little tray of seeds out there that usually overnight the possums and raccoons don't really get into the seeds too much, but in the mornings, early mornings, I can walk out there right now and not see a single squirrel. But about 6 to 7 o'clock in the morning out there, there's 6 of them in about a 20 square foot area. 6 of them. I've never seen 6 squirrels get that close together for any reason, not even a feeder, but anyway, and that's not including the flying squirrels. These are just regular. Florida has some very unique colorations on squirrels, by the way. I don't know how we got on this, but there's a gray with white belly. There's the classic fox squirrel with the fox coat. There's even some darker ones, but anyway, I have all sorts of video of them. Point being, things are not going to be in the next year or two like people think they are. And Florida has been largely, I don't want to say ignored, but I don't think people take us seriously, which is fine. But they're going to start to take the money seriously very soon. Actually, BR in the mornings out there, I do have finches and cardinals and crows and what else? We have split-tail hawks and ravens and owls. I hear them all the time. and buzzards. And believe me, there's no shortage of birds in Florida, especially here up on the northeast coast. It's I've been working on this series talking about the first Thanksgiving and how it really occurred here in Florida. This picture you're looking at is the inlet at St. Augustine. This is the Star Fort right here. That was the point of contention for hundreds of years, where the French and the Spanish were trying to vie over the area. Now it was called Fort Caroline at the time, but the area now known as Jacksonville. This was the entire desire of most of Europe for 100 years. Everything from Cocoa Beach all the way up to Fernandina. Because of the natural inlets. See, when you landed here at what they called Fort Caroline, you had this wonderful river. This wonderful freshwater river, big, wide river. You could take ships up in it. You could take big ships deep inside, deep inland, the St. John's. See, this was a natural, strategic asset. And then when you went farther south, you arrived at another one. Another major natural inlet. The Matanzas River, right by where St. Augustine is, farther south. And then if you went even farther down, there was another one, not quite as big, called Fort Matanzas, where you could literally get into the interior with a big ship. Joanna, the St. John's River is named after John in the Bible. So if you're somehow related to John in the Bible, that would be an interesting family tree to see. So that's why it's called the St. John's River, not the John River, but it was like I said, this was Fort Caroline, St. Augustine, and then all the way down here. And as they made their way down, they encountered, of course, Canaveral and all this area. But there were some that came from Spain and returned to the king and said, it's just unpassable. That Florida is just not worth your time. And I'm sure where they were landing was probably down in this region here because, without some major intervention, it was nothing but solid mangroves full of gators. And so if you were planning on, landing there and then somehow making a place where you could build a barn and build some shelters and start growing crops, this would not have been the place to do it. But funny story, that's a lot what Florida does now, is grow crops. So it's an interesting dichotomy to see how the original folks who landed here didn't think Florida was one thing, and now it's not only possible to do that thing. It's one of we're the second biggest producer of potatoes behind Idaho. Fun fact. You would think, how could Idaho and Florida have anything in common? So, anyway, but I will leave it there and not take any much more of your mornings. But make no mistake, we have a great opportunity here. And I'll see if I can show this one more time. Well, I guess it's not going to let me. So, anyway, God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We're going to continue the book reading later on of the governor's book, First Principles in the Age of Obama, Dreams from Our Founding Fathers. So, And then, of course, we'll have another regular video to do as well. So if you could, please like, share, subscribe, and share the channel. I am dealing with issues with YouTube and would really like your help if you could. Facebook, if you could share. Twitter, if you could share. Or other platforms, whatever you have, if you could share. Would really appreciate that. It would help me a lot. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a great morning, and we will see you a little bit later on today.